Hello, hello.
He had an helmet of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of brass. And he had greaves of brass upon his legs, and a target of brass between his shoulders. And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron, and one bearing a shield went before him. And he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel, and said unto them, Why are ye come out to set your battle in array? Am not I a Philistine, and ye servants to Saul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. If he be able to fight with me, and to kill me, then will we be your servants. But if I prevail against him, and kill him, then shall ye be our servants, and serve us. And the Philistines said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together. When Saul and all Israel heard those words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Now David was the son of that Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and he had 8 sons. And the man went among men for an old man in the days of Saul. And the 3 eldest sons of Jesse went and followed Saul to the battle. And the names of his 3 sons that went to the battle were Eliab the firstborn, and next unto him Abinadab, and the third Shammah. And David was the youngest, and the 3 eldest followed Saul. But David went and returned from Saul to feed his sheep at Bethlehem. And the Philistine drew near morning and evening, and presented himself 40 days. And Jesse said unto David his son, Take now for thy brethren an ephah of this parched corn, and these 10 loaves, and run to the
Galapsal
camp of
Outpost.
Bethel,
Thank
and
you,
carry
thank you.
these 10 cheeses, and look how thy brethren fare, and take their pledge. Now Saul and they, and all the men of Israel, were in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines. And David rose up early in the morning, and left the sheep with the keeper, and took and went as Jesse
Thank you,
had
guys. Welcome.
and he came to the trench as the host was going forth to the fight, and shouted for the battle. For Israel and the Philistines had put the battle in array, army against army. And David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage, and ran into the army, and came and saluted his brethren. And as he talked with them, behold, there came up the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same words. And David heard them. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him, and were sore afraid. And the men of Israel said, Have ye seen this man that is come up? Surely to defy Israel is he come up. And it shall be that the man who killeth him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel. And David spake to the man that stood by him, saying, What shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, and taketh away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God? And the people answered him after this manner, saying, So shall it be done to the man that killeth him. And Eliab his eldest brother heard when he spake unto the men. And Eliab's anger was kindled against David, and he said, Why camest thou down hither? And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know thy pride, and the naughtiness of thine heart. For thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle. And David said, What have I now done? Is there not a cause? And he turned from him toward another, and spake after the same manner. And the people answered him again after the former manner. And when the words were heard which David spake, they rehearsed them before Saul, and he sent for him. And David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine. And Saul said to David, Thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. And David said unto Saul, Thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him, and smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard, and smote him, and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God. David said, moreover, The Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion, and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said unto David, Go, and the Lord be with thee. And Saul armed David with his armor, and he put an helmet of brass upon his head. Also he armed him with a coat of mail. And David girded his sword upon his armor, and he essayed to go, for he had not proved it. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off him. And he took his staff in his hand, and chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook, and put them in a shepherd's bag which he had, even in a scrip. And his sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. And the Philistine came on, and drew near unto David, and the man that bare the shield went before him. And when the Philistine looked about, and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth, and ruddy, and of a fair countenance. And the Philistine said unto David, Am I a dog, that thou comest to me with staves? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And the Philistine said to David, Come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of the air, and to the beasts of the field. Then said David to the Philistine, Thou comest to me with a sword, and with a spear, and with a shield. But I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. This day will the Lord deliver thee into mine hand, and I will smite thee, and take thine head from thee, and I will give the carcasses of the host of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air, and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. And all this assembly shall know that the Lord saveth not with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. And it came to
Welcome
pass, when
guys.
the
For
Philistine
today.
arose, and came near
welcome,
to
welcome.
meet David, that David hasted, and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. And David put his hand in his bag, and took thence a stone, and slang it, and smote the Philistine in his forehead, that the stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell upon his face to the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and smote the Philistine, and slew him. But there was no sword in the hand of David. Therefore David ran, and stood upon the Philistine, and took his sword, and drew it out of the sheath thereof, and slew him, and cut off his head therewith. And when the Philistines saw their champion was dead,
Boy,
they
it's
fled.
fight.
And the men of Israel and of Judah arose, and shouted, and pursued the Philistines, until thou
Welcome
come to
guys,
the
thank you for
valley, unto
joining.
the gates of Ekron. And the wounded of the Philistines fell down by the way to Shaaraim, even unto Gath, and unto Ekron. And the children of Israel returned from chasing after the Philistines, and they spoiled their tents. And David took the head of the Philistine, but he put his armor in his tent. And when Saul saw David go forth against the Philistine, he said unto Abner, the captain of the host, Abner, whose son is this youth?
Lifestyle. welcome, welcome. May jacket na. Welcome.
And the king said, Inquire thou whose son the stripling is. And as
Please,
David
what's
returned from
for
the slaughter of the Philistine, Abner
please.
took him and brought him before Saul with the head of the Philistine in his hand. And Saul said to
Okay.
him, Whose son art thou, thou young man? And David answered, I am the son of thy servant Jesse, the Bethlehemite.
Welcome guys, thank you for joining guys.
Chapter 18.
Wala man.
And it came to pass, at the end of speaking unto Saul, that the soul of Jonathan was knit with the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. And Saul took him that day, and would let him go no more home to his father's house. Then Jonathan and David made a covenant, because he loved him as his own soul, upon him.
At lifestyle, sorry. At lifestyle with Taras ma'am done to you from RGD Vlog. Gutom na si host. Nang kain eh.
And Saul set him over the men of war, and he was accepted in the sight of all the people, and also in the sight of Saul's servants. And it came to pass as they came, when David was returned from the slaughter of the Philistine, the women came out of all cities of Israel, singing and dancing, to meet King Saul with tabrets, with joy, and with instruments of music. And the women answered one another as they played, and said, Saul hath slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s. And Saul was very wroth, And the saying displeased him, and he said, They
Welcome
have
guys.
ascribed unto David
Welcome guys. Thank you for joining.
me they have ascribed but thousands. And what can he have more but the kingdom?
Thumbs up.
And Saul eyed David from that day and forth.
Thumbs up, boss.
And
Okay,
it
thank
came
you
to
for
pass
joining,
one
boss.
day that the evil spirit from God came upon Saul, and he prophesied in the midst of the
Done
camp.
watching and sub lifestyle with us, ma'am.
And there was a
Thank you
javelin
for
in Saul's
joining.
hand. And Saul cast the javelin, for he said, I will smite David even to the wall with it. And David avoided out of his presence twice. And Saul was afraid of David, because the Lord was with him, and was departed from Saul. Therefore Saul removed him from him, and made him his captain over 1,000.
Thanks,
And
bro.
he went out
Salamat,
and
bro.
came in before the king. And David behaved himself
Walang
wisely
tao.
in all his
Sige lang.
ways, and the Lord was with him.
Minsan ako mas
Wherefore,
mukha eh.
when
Minsan na
Saul saw that he behaved
bilis
himself
kaya walang
wisely,
tao.
he was afraid of him.
Pagod sa trabaho. Pataw sa
His men
trabaho.
and Judah loved David, because he went out
Kaya
and
wala
came
ng
to
time sa
their aid.
pag-ilis. Sige.
And
Sige lang.
Saul said to David, Behold, my
Bawi
eldest
ako.
daughter Merab, her will I give thee to wife. Only be thou valiant for me, and fight the Lord's battles. For Saul said, Let not mine hand be upon him, but let the hand of the Philistines be upon him. And David said unto Saul, Who am I? And what is my life, or my father's family in Israel, that I should be son-in-law to the king? But it came to pass at the time when Merab, Saul's daughter, should have been given to David, that she was given unto Adriel the Maholathite to wife. And Michal, Saul's daughter, loved David. And they told Saul, and the thing pleased him. And Saul said, I will give him her, that she may be a snare to him, and that the hand of the Philistines may be against him. Wherefore Saul said to David, Thou shalt this day be my son-in-law in the one of the twain. And Saul commanded his servants, saying, Commune with David secretly, and say, Behold, the king hath delight in thee, and all his servants love thee. Now therefore be the king's son-in-law. And Saul's servants spake those words in the ears of David. And David said, Seemeth it to you a light thing to be a king's son-in-law, seeing that I am a poor man, and lightly esteemed? And the servants of Saul told him, saying, On this manner spake David. And Saul said, Thus shall ye say to David, The king desireth not any dowry, but 100 foreskins of the Philistines, to be avenged of the king's enemies. But Saul thought to make David fall by the hand of the Philistines. And when his servants told David these words, it pleased David well to be the king's son-in-law, and the days were not expired. Wherefore David arose and went, he and his men, and slew of the Philistines 200 men. And David brought their foreskins, and they gave them in full tale to the king, that he might be the king's son-in-law. And Saul gave him Michal his daughter to wife. And Saul saw and knew that the Lord was with David, and that Michal, Saul's daughter, loved him. And Saul was yet the more afraid of David. And Saul became David's enemy continually. Then the princes of the Philistines went forth, and it came to pass after they went forth, that David behaved himself more wisely than
Tatay Panday
so that his name was
from RG Vlog. Big love shout out. How are you, sir? From Nabil Sagar. It's okay. I'm okay. Thank you for joining.
that would kill David. But Jonathan, Saul's son, delighted much in David. And Jonathan told David, saying, Saul my father seeketh to kill thee.
Kumusta na? Kapalal Sadik.
Take heed to thyself until the
Sadik,
morning.
how are you, Sadik?
Go into a secret place and hide thyself. And I will go out and stand beside my father in the field where thou art, and I will commune with my father of thee. And what I see, that I will tell thee. And Jonathan spake good of David unto Saul his father, and said unto him, Let not the king sin against his servant, against David, because he hath not sinned against thee, and because his works have been to thee word very good. For he did put his life in his hand, and slew
Thumbs up from Tatay Panday.
great salvation.
Pusing, welcome Pusing. Welcome tayo.
Sawest it, and didst rejoice.
Minsan ako pag-online eh.
Wherefore then wilt thou sin against innocent blood, to slay
Kaya
David
dapat
without
nakainis tayo.
cause?
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for RGD Vlog.
The Lord liveth.
Salamat sa pag-burger dyan. Palipad.
Jonathan called David, and Jonathan showed him all those things. And Jonathan brought David to
Sleepy
Saul,
naman.
and he was in his presence, as in times past. And there was war again. And David went out and fought with the Philistines, and slew them with a great slaughter, and they fled from him. And the evil spirit from the Lord was upon Saul as he sat in his
Thank you
house.
so much for the super sticker
And David
from
fled from
RGD Vlog.
and Saul sought to smite
Salamat sa
David
palipad
with
dyan.
the javelin. But he slipped away out of Saul's presence, and he smote the javelin into the wall. And David fled and escaped that night. Saul also sent messengers unto David's house to watch him and to slay him in the morning. And Michal, David's wife, told him, saying, If thou save not thy life tonight, tomorrow thou shalt be slain. So Michal let David
Welcome
have his
guys.
wife
Thank you for
and
tuning.
fled and escaped. And Michal took an image and laid it in the bed and put goats bolted with a cloth. And when Saul sent messengers to take David, she said, He is sick. And Saul sent the messengers again to see David, saying, Bring him up to me in the bed, that I may slay him. And when the messengers were
Welcome
come,
guys. Thank you for
there
joining.
was an image in the bed, with a pillow of goat's hair for his bolster. And Saul said unto Michal, Why hast thou deceived me so, and sent away mine enemy, that he is escaped? And Michal answered Saul,
Agdan
He said
hosto.
unto me, Let me go. Why should I kill thee? So David fled and escaped, and came to Samuel to Ramah, and told him
Watching
all.
Tatay
So
Panday
it came to
from
pass that he
Samantha
and
Jean.
Samuel went and dwelt in Naioth. And it was told Saul, saying, Behold, David is at Naioth in Ramah. And Saul sent messengers to take David. And when they saw the company of the prophets prophesying, and Samuel standing as appointed over them, the Spirit of God was upon the messengers of Saul, and they also prophesied. And when it was told Saul, he sent other messengers, and they prophesied likewise.
Mega love shoutout sa lahat
Sent messengers again the
sa
third time, and they
pag-tune dito.
prophesied also.
Tatay Panday,
Then went he
Lifestyle with
Samuel
Tasmab.
and came to a great well that is
Salamat
in
po sa
Shiloh,
lahat. Mega love
and
shoutout po sa
asked him
lahat.
and said, Where are Samuel and David? And
Mega love
David said,
shoutout.
They
5
are
million
at
people in the house.
Naioth.
5 million kasi lima lang
And
po
he
yung
went
lahin.
in to Naioth in
Ilang.
Ramah. And the Spirit of God was upon him also. And he went on and prophesied until he came to Naioth in Ramah. And he stripped off his clothes also, and prophesied before Samuel in like manner. And
Mega
left
love
the
shoutout
Lord
po sa
God
lahat.
upon
Sa
him
mga
and died.
bagong queen po.
Therefore they say,
Welcome po sa live
So
streaming natin
also
ngayon.
are the prophets. Chapter 20. And David fled from Naioth in Ramah, and came and said before Jonathan, What have I done? What is mine iniquity? And what is my sin before thy father, that he seeketh my life? And he said unto him, God forbid, thou shalt not die. Behold, my father will do nothing, either great or small, but that he will show it me. And why should my father hide this thing from me? It is not so. And David sware moreover, and said, Thy father certainly knoweth that I have found grace in thine.
Welcome guys. Thank you for
Let
joining.
not Jonathan know this, lest he be grieved. But truly as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, there is but a step between me and death. Then said Jonathan unto David, Whatsoever thy soul desireth, I will even do it for thee. And David said unto Jonathan, Behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to sit with the king at meat. Let me go, that I may hide myself in the field unto the third day at even. If thy father at all miss me, then say, David earnestly asked leave of me, that he might run to Bethlehem his city, for there is a yearly sacrifice there for all the family. If he say thus, It is well, thy servant shall have peace. But if he be
Hello guys. Welcome guys.
then be sure that evil is determined by him. Therefore thou shalt deal kindly with thy servant, for thou hast brought thy servant into a covenant of the Lord with thee. Notwithstanding, if there be in me iniquity, slay me thyself. For why shouldest thou bring me to thy father? And Jonathan said, Far be it from thee. For if I knew certainly that evil were determined by my father to come upon thee, then would not I tell it thee? Then said David to Jonathan, Who shall tell me? Or what if thy father answer thee roughly? And Jonathan said unto David, Come, and let us go out into the field. And they went out both of them into the field. And Jonathan said unto David, O Lord God of Israel, when I have sounded my father about tomorrow any time, or the third day, and behold, if there be good toward David, and I then send not unto thee, and show it thee, the Lord do so and much more to Jonathan. But if it please my father to do thee evil, then I will show it thee, and send thee away, that thou mayest go in peace. And the Lord be with thee, as he hath been with my father. And thou shalt not only while yet I live show me the kindness of the Lord, that I die not, but also thou shalt not hide thy kindness from my house forever. No, not when the Lord hath cut off the enemies of David every one from the face of the earth. So Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, Let the Lord even require it at the hand of David's enemies. Jonathan caused David to swear again, because he loved him, for he loved him as he loved his own soul. Then Jonathan said to David, Tomorrow is the new moon, and thou shalt be missed, because thy seat will be empty. And when thou hast stayed 3 days, then thou shalt go down quickly, and come to the place where thou didst hide thyself when the business was in hand, and shalt remain by the stone Ezel. And I will shoot through
Welcome
it
guys. Thank you for
as
joining.
though I shot at a mark. And behold, I will send a lad, saying, Go, find out the arrows. If I expressly say unto the lad, Behold, the arrows are on this side of thee, take them, then come thou. For there is peace to thee, and no hurt, as the Lord liveth. But if I say thus unto the young man, Behold, the arrows are beyond thee, go thy way, for the Lord hath sent thee away. And as touching the matter which thou and I have spoken of, behold, the Lord be between thee and me. So David hid himself in the field. And when the new moon was come, the king sat him down to eat meat. And the king sat upon a seat as at even upon a seat by the wall. And Jonathan arose, and Abner sat by Saul's side, and David's place was empty. Nevertheless, Saul spake not anything that day, for he thought, Some on him, he is not clean. Surely he is not clean. And it came to pass on the morrow, which was the second day of the month, that David's place was empty. And Saul said unto Jonathan his son, Wherefore cometh not the son of Jesse to meat, neither yesterday nor today? And Jonathan answered Saul, David earnestly asked leave of me to go to Bethlehem. And he said, Let me go, I pray thee, for our family hath a sacrifice in the city. And my brother, he hath commanded me to be there. And now, if I have found favor in thine eyes, let me get away, I pray thee, and see my brethren. Therefore he cometh not unto the king's table. Then Saul's anger was kindled against Jonathan, and he
Welcome
said,
guys. Thank you for joining.
Worthless, rebellious woman, do not I know that thou hast chosen the son of Jesse to thine own confusion, and unto the confusion of thy mother's nakedness? For as long as the son of Jesse liveth upon the ground, thou shalt not be established, nor thy kingdom. Wherefore now send and fetch him unto me, for he shall surely die. And Jonathan answered Saul his father, and said unto him, Wherefore shall he be slain? What hath he done? And Saul cast a javelin at him to smite him, whereby Jonathan knew that it was determined of his father to slay David. So Jonathan arose from the table in fierce anger, and did eat no meat the second day of the month, for he was grieved for David, because his father had done him shame. And it came to pass in the morning that Jonathan went out into the field at the time appointed with David, and a little lad with him. And he said unto his lad, Run, find out now the arrows which I shoot. And as the lad ran, he shot an arrow beyond him. And when the lad was come to the place of the arrow which Jonathan had shot, Jonathan cried after the lad and said, Is not the arrow beyond thee? And Jonathan cried after the lad, Make speed, haste, stay not. And Jonathan's lad gathered up the arrows and came to his master. But the lad knew not anything. Only Jonathan and David knew the matter. And Jonathan gave his artillery unto his lad, and said unto him, Go, carry them to the city. And as soon as the lad was gone, David arose out of a place toward the south, and fell on his face to the ground, and bowed himself 3 times. And they kissed one another, and wept one with another, until David exceeded. And Jonathan said to David, Go in peace, forasmuch as we have sworn both of us in the name of the Lord, saying, The Lord be between me and thee, and between my seed and thy seed forever. And he arose and departed, and Jonathan went into the city. Chapter 21. Then came David to Nob, to Ahimelech the priest. And Ahimelech was afraid at the meeting of David, and said unto him, Why art thou alone, and no man with thee? said unto Ahimelech the priest, the king hath commanded me a business, and hath said unto me, let no man know anything of the business whereabout I send thee, and what I have commanded thee. And I have appointed my servants to such and
Thank
such.
you, bossing.
Now therefore, what is under thine hand? Give me 5 loaves of
Thank
bread.
you, Tatay Panday. Thank you for supporting me.
And the priest answered David and said, there is no common bread under mine hand, hallowed bread, if the young men have kept themselves at least from women. And David answered the priest and said unto him, of a truth, women have been kept from us about these 3 days since I came out, and the vessels of the young men are holy. And the bread is in a manner common, yea, though it were sanctified this day in the vessel. So the priest gave him hallowed bread, for there was no bread there but the showbread that was taken from before the Lord, to put hot bread in the day when it was taken away. Now a certain man of the servants of Saul was there that day, detained before the Lord. And his name was Doeg, an Edomite, the chiefest of the herdmen that belonged to Saul. And David said unto him,
Welcome, guys. Thank you for joining, guys. Big love shout out. 7 million people in the house. Thank you for joining. Thank you for watching for Diaries for today. Welcome. Salamat sa mga suporta. Kay Tate Panday sa team ko sa quad, Teaching Dream. Salamat po.
For there is no other save that here. And David said,
Thank you po sa pag-join ngayon.
and David arose and fled that day for fear of Saul, and went to Achish the king of Gath. And the servants of Achish said unto him, is not this David the king of the land? Did they not sing one to another of him in dances, saying, Saul hath slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s? And David laid up these words in his heart, and was sore afraid of Achish the king of Gath. And he changed his behavior before them, and feigned himself mad in their hands, and scrabbled on the doors of the gate, and let his spittle fall down upon his beard. Then said Achish unto his servants, lo, ye see the man is mad. Wherefore then have ye brought him to me? Have I need of madmen that ye have brought
Good morning, host. Reaching Dream. Salamat po. From Cecil Bilbao. Thank you po. Thank you. Kamsa host from DC Dulan. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for joining. Salamat po sa pag-kamsak.
escaped to the cave of Adullam. And
Yan
his
ang,
brethren and all his father's house heard it. They went down thither to him.
okay.
And everyone that was in distress, and everyone that was in debt, and
Kamsak
everyone
sa'yo.
that was
Salamat po.
discouraged,
Salamat
gathered
bro.
themselves unto him.
Thank you for joining.
And there were with him about 400 men. And David went thence to Mizpeh of Moab. And he said unto the king of Moab, let my father and my mother, I pray thee, come forth and be with you, till I know
Salamat kapatid. Thank you for joining.
brought them before the king of Moab.
Welcome po.
And
Welcome
they
po kayo
told
lahat.
him all the while that David was in the hold. And the prophet Gad said unto David, abide not in the hold, depart and get thee into the land of Judah. Then David departed, and came into the forest of Hareth. When Saul heard that David was discovered, and the men that were with him, now Saul abode in Gibeah under a tree in Ramah, having his spear in his
Thank you guys. Thank you for joining guys.
Then Saul said unto
Big love shout out po sa lahat. Sa mga bago sa lahat.
son, give every one of you fields and
May
vineyards,
jacket na po. Baba lang yung house. Baba ko lang bahay.
conspired against me, and there is none that showeth me that my son hath made a league with the son of Jesse. And there is none of you that is
Sa nakapin po, pasulit lang. Salamat.
my son hath stirred up my servant against me to lie in wait as at this day. Then answered Doeg the Edomite, which was set over the servants of Saul, and said, I saw the son of Jesse, Nob, doing the son of Ahitub. And he inquired of the Lord for him, and gave him victuals, and gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine. Then the king sent to call Ahimelech the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all his father's house, the priests that were in Nob. And they came all of them to the king. And Saul said, hear now, thou son of Ahitub. And he answered,
Welcome guys. Thank you for joining.
and Saul said unto him, why have ye conspired against me, thou and the son of Jesse, in that thou hast given him bread and a sword, and hast inquired of God for him, that he should rise against me to lie in wait as at this day? Then Ahimelech answered the king and said, and who is so faithful among all thy servants as David, which is the king's son?
Tamsak na nakapin from Cecil Bilbao.
Did I
Thank you
send
po,
you to search the heart of God for
boss.
him? Be it far from me. Let not the king impute anything unto his servant, nor to all the house of my father. For thy servant knew nothing of all this, less or more. And the king said, Thou shalt surely die, Ahimelech, thou and all thy father's house. And the king said unto the footmen that stood about him, Turn and slay the priests of the Lord, because their hand also is with David, and because they knew when he fled, and did not show it to me. But the servants of the king would not put forth their hand to fall
Welcome,
upon the
guys.
priests of the
Mega
Lord.
love shout out. 8
And the
million
king
people
said to
in the
Doeg,
house.
Turn thou and fall upon the priests. And Doeg
Thank
the
you for
Edomite turned,
joining.
and fell upon the priests, and slew on that day 65 persons that did wear a linen ephod.
Welcome po sa lahat. Welcome po sa lahat. Thank you for joining, guys.
Smote he with the edge of the sword, both men and women, children and sucklings, and oxen and asses and sheep with the edge of the sword. And one of the sons of Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, named Abiathar, escaped and fled after David. And Abiathar showed David that Saul had slain the Lord's priests. And David said unto Abiathar, I knew it that day when Doeg the Edomite was there, that he saw I had occasioned all the sins of thy father's house. Abide thou with me, fear not. For he that seeketh my life, thy life, but with me thou shalt be in safeguard. Chapter 2. Then they told David, saying, Behold, the Philistines fight against Keilah, and they rob the threshing floors. Against the armies of the Philistines.
Thank you for joining.
And the Lord answered him and said, Arise, go down to Keilah.
Hindi ko na narinig yung pan ko sa'yo, yung membership ko sa'yo. Wala na eh. Nag-error po yung pan ko, ma'am. Nag-error yung membership ko, na-error ko na rin yung sa'yo. Pasensya na po.
And it came to pass, when Abiathar the son of Ahimelech fled to David to Keilah, that he came down with an ephod in his hand. And it was told Saul that David was come to Keilah. And Saul said, God hath delivered him into mine hand.
They are of 40 on the way sa bahay niyo from RGD Vlog.
And Saul called all the people together to war, to go down to Keilah, to besiege David and his men. And David knew that Saul secretly practiced mischief against him. And he said to Abiathar the priest, Bring hither the ephod. Then said David, O Lord God of Israel, thy servant hath certainly heard that Saul seeketh
Welcome po sa lahat.
the city for my sake. Will the men of Keilah deliver me into his hand? Will Saul come down as thy servant hath heard? O Lord God of Israel, I beseech thee, tell thy servant. And the Lord said, He will come down.
Sa nakapit po tayo.
Will the men of
Si
Keilah
DR.
deliver my men into the hand of Saul?
Okay.
And the Lord said, They will deliver thee up.
Tawag ba?
Then David and his men, which were about 600, arose and departed out of Keilah, and went whithersoever they could go. And it was told Saul that David was escaped from Keilah, and he forbare to go forth. And David abode in the wilderness in strongholds, and remained in a mountain in the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul sought him every day, but God delivered him not into his hand. And David saw that Saul was come out to seek his life. And David was in the wilderness of Ziph in a wood. And Jonathan, Saul's son, arose and went to David into the wood, and strengthened his hand in God. And he said unto him, Fear not, for the hand of Saul my father shall not find thee. And thou shalt be king over Israel, and I shall be next unto thee. And that all father knoweth. And they two covenanted before the Lord. And David abode in the wood, and Jonathan went to his house. Then came up the
Taka lang.
Ziphites to Saul to give. Doth not David hide himself with us in strongholds in the wood, in the hill of Hachilah, which is on the south Timon? Now therefore, O king, come down according to all the desire of thy soul to come down. and our part shall be to
Okay yan.
give him into the king's hand. And Saul said,
Yes, sir.
Blessed be ye of the Lord,
Punta sa edis
for
ko.
he hath compassion on me. Go, I pray you, prepare
Sige,
yet,
sir. Okay.
and know and see his
Okay.
place where his haunt is, and who hath there. Told me that he dealeth very subtly. See therefore, and take knowledge of all the lurking places where he hideth himself, and come ye again to me with the certainty, and I will go with you. And it shall come to pass, if he be in the land, that I will search him out throughout all the thousands of Judah. And they arose and went to Ziph before Saul. But David and his men were in the wilderness of Maon, in the plain on the south of Jeshimon. Saul also and his men went to seek him, and they told David.
Hello guys, pasensya na, may tumawag pa sa akin eh. Ano? Urgent calling.
And when Saul heard that, he pursued after David in the wilderness of Maon. And Saul went on this side of the mountain. And
Hello
David
boss, from Ayman Apat. Okay lang po. Assalamualaikum.
away for fear of Saul.
Kumusta host? I'm okay. Thank you for joining. Welcome po, welcome.
But there came a messenger saying,
Welcome po sa lahat ng bagong join po. Welcome po sa lahat.
Wherefore Saul returned from pursuing
Lalo na sa ating super chatter ngayon. Archie Vlog, thank you for palipad.
David went up from there.
Salamat po sa support. Thank you guys. Welcome. Thank you po sa lahat.
When Saul was returned from following the Philistines, that it told him, saying, Behold, David is in the wood and Jedi. Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men out of all Israel, and went to seek David and his men upon the rocks of the wild goats. And he came to the sheepcotes by the way, where was a cave. And Saul went in to cover his feet.
Jacket host.
Remained at the sides of the cave.
Okay, may jacket ka na.
Behold,
Samantha,
this
Jade.
which the Lord said unto thee,
May jacket na po, may
Behold,
jacket na po.
whoever
Bigyan ng
thine
maraming
enemy is
jacket
thine
yan.
hand, that thou mayest do to him as it shall seem good unto thee. Then David arose and cut off the skirt of Saul's robe privily. And it came to pass after
May jacket ka na, Samantha. Welcome po. Thank you for joining. Welcome mo ito enjoy sa lapagan dyan.
the Lord forbid
Sa nakapin po tayo. Pasuit na lang. Support sa nakapin.
to stretch forth mine hand
Bigyan ng
against him, seeing he is the
ikitan niya
anointed
na sa lagyan ng thumbs up.
of his servants with these words, and suffered not to rise against Saul. Out of the cave
Welcome guys. Thank you for joining. Mega love shout out po sa lahat.
and cried after Saul, saying, My lord the king. And when Saul looked behind him, David stooped with his face to the earth himself. And David said to Saul, Wherefore hearest thou men's words, saying, Behold, David seeketh thy hurt?
Tatay Pantay, salamat po sir. Thank you sing. Thank you sa support po.
Into mine hand in the cave.
Thank you for joining and watching the live streaming po.
Mine I spared thee, and I said, I will not put forth mine hand against my Lord, for he is the Lord's anointed. Moreover, my father, see, yea, see the skirt of thy robe in my hand, and that I cut off the skirt of thy
Salamat TC and Archie from Iharo 40. Salamat pati. Thank you for joining.
Yet thou huntest my soul to take it. The Lord judge between me and thee, and the Lord avenge me of thee. Mine hand shall not be upon thee. As saith the proverb of the ancients, wickedness proceedeth from the wicked, but mine hand shall not be upon thee. After whom is the king of Israel come out? After whom dost thou pursue? Dead.
Welcome guys. Thank you for joining guys.
Therefore be judge, and judge between me and thee, and see, and plead my cause.
Hello Sir GR from Basilio Sintabo. Welcome po guys sa ating uh,
That Saul said,
sa ating new comer, si Sir Basilio Sintabo. Thumbs up dan po from Basilio Sintabo. Welcome sir. Sir, baba po yung mo. Baba po yung house mo. Yung house, ito sabihin, link. May jacket ka na. Yung jacket, nakapa na.
Thou killest me not.
Okay. Meron na po yung jacket.
If a man find his enemy,
Baba po yung mo, sir. Yung bahay. Yung bahay, ibig sabihin, link.
Lord do good for that thou hast done unto me this day. And now behold, I know
Welcome guys. Thank you for joining
and that the
for
king
my live streaming. Thank you guys. Welcome po sa lahat.
swear now
Lalo na po sa ating super chatter ngayon, si Ma'am RGD. Thank you po sa kwan. Thank you po sa palipad.
Me out of my father's house. And David sware unto Saul, and Saul went home. But David and his men gat them up.
So nakapin po. Suportahan natin yung nakapin.
Chapter 25. And Samuel died, and all the Israelites were gathered together and lamented him, and buried him in his house at Ramah. And David arose and went down to the wilderness of Paran. And there was a man in Maon whose possessions were in Carmel, and the man was very great, and he had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. Now the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife Abigail, and she was a woman of good understanding and of a beautiful countenance. But the man was churlish and evil in his doings, and he was of the house of Caleb. And David heard in the wilderness that Nabal did shear his sheep.
Hello guys, welcome sa lahat po. So nakapin po tayo guys. Bagong kwan po to. Bagong kaibigan. Guys, please supportan natin ha. Dikit yung bahay ng kaibigan natin. Si Basilio Sintabo. At saka dikit kayo maayos. Saka siyempre, mag-iwan kayo ng bakas. Thank you Sir DR from Basilio Sintapos. Welcome po sir.
Wherefore let the young men find favor in thine eyes, for we come in a good day.
Lifestyle with Tahas, ma'am, daan sa'yo from Cecilio or Diharo 40. At Basilio Sintabo, on the way sa bahay niyo po sir, from RGD Vlog. Okay? Lapagan na po tayo, magdikitan po.
Who is David, and who is the son of Jesse?
Pa-jacket host from Dexter. Okay, ikaw sir, bigyan na. O yan, may jacket ka na. Ikaw na next.
And my flesh
Guys, nakapin po tayo guys.
give it unto men whom I know not whence they be. So David's young men turned their way and went again, and came and told him all those sayings.
Guys, salamat pa siya lang kayo sa bahay ko. Balik din ako.
Gird ye on every
From Basilio Sintabo.
and girded on every man his sword. And David also girded on his sword. And there went up after David about 400 men, and 200 abode by the stuff.
Welcome guys.
But one of the young men told
Thank you for joining guys. Welcome po. Welcome sa lahat.
David sent messengers out of the wilderness to salute our master.
Yun, si Dexter, nagbaba ng bahay niya.
The men were very good unto us, were not hurt.
At Basilio Sintabo, dan full pack sa'yo sir, from RGD Vlog.
They were a wall.
Tatay Panday, dan sa'yo, from Diharo 40.
Now therefore know and consider what thou wilt do.
Welcome guys.
Sin against our master and against all his household, for he is such a son of Belial that a man cannot speak to him. Then Abigail made haste, and took 200 loaves, and 2 bottles of wine, and 5 sheep ready dressed, and 5 measures of parched corn, and 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 cakes of figs, and laid them on asses.
At Samantha Jit, on the way sa'yo, from RGD Vlog.
Behold, I come after you. But she told not her husband Nabal. And it was so, as she rode on the ass, that she came down by the covert of the hill, and behold, David and his men came down against her. Now David had said, Surely in vain have I kept all that this fellow hath in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that pertained unto him, and he hath requited me evil for good. So and more also do God unto the enemies of David, if I leave of all that pertain to him by the morning light any that pisseth against the wall. And when Abigail saw David, she hasted, and lighted off the ass, and fell before David on her face, and bowed herself to the ground, and fell at his feet, and said, Upon me, my lord, upon me let this iniquity be, and let thine handmaid, I pray,
Welcome guys.
and hear the words of thine handmaid. Let not, my lord, I pray thee, regard this man of Belial, even about
RGD Vlog, sige, salamat pa siya lang po now, from Basilio Sintabo.
and folly is with him. But I, thine handmaid, saw not the young men of my lord whom thou didst send. Now therefore, my lord, as the Lord liveth,
Guys, thank you for joining. Welcome po sa lahat.
the Lord hath withholden thee from coming to shed
At Samantha Jit, watching from sa Tatay Panday, from RGD Vlog.
and they that seek evil to my lord be as Nabal. And now this blessing which thine handmaid hath brought unto my lord, let it even be given unto the young men that follow my lord. I pray thee, forgive the trespass of thine handmaid. For the Lord will certainly make my Lord a sure house, because my Lord fighteth the battles of the Lord, and evil hath not been found in thee all thy days.
Thank you, sir. At Basilio Sintabo from RGD Vlog.
But the soul of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of life,
Basilio Sintabo, tikit sa'yo from DHR 40.
then shall he sling out as out of the middle of
Salamat po
the
guys.
sword.
Thank you sa lahat po. Thank you sa support.
When the Lord shall have done to my Lord according to all the good
At Kill Dexter, on the way sa'yo from RGD Vlog. Salamat po sa support.
that this shall be no grief unto thee.
Welcome guys sa mga bago po. Welcome po sa lahat.
Thou hast shed blood causeless.
Sa nakapin po, suportahan po natin si Basilio Sintabo.
The Lord shall have dealt
Ang bagong kaibigan natin dito sa YouTube.
remember.
Guys, please suportahan ng maayos po.
Blessed be the Lord God of
RGD Vlog watching. 1.45 minutes from Basilio Sintabo.
hast kept me this day from coming
Welcome po sa lahat.
from avenging myself with mine own hand. For in very deed, as the Lord God of Israel liveth, which hath kept me back from hurting thee, except thou hadst tasted and come to meet me, surely there had not been left unto Nabal by the morning light any that pisseth against the wall. So David received of her hand that which she had brought him, and said unto her, Go up in peace to thine house. See, I have hearkened to thy voice, and have accepted thy person. And
Sa nakapin po guys ha. Suportahan po natin sa nakapin guys. Padikit ng maayos po. Amsak din at saka magpakas po kayo sa kwan. Sa palabas.
But it came to pass in the morning, when the wine was gone out of Nabal, and his wife had told him these things,
Thank you guys. Thank you for joining guys. Salamat po sa lahat.
some days the Lord smote Nabal. That
Salamat po sa ating super chatter po si Ma'am RGD Vlog. Salamat pala sa palipad.
hath pleaded the
At
cause
sa lahat po dito na nanood, sa nag-join po sa IS, thank you po sa lahat.
for the Lord hath returned the wickedness of Nabal upon his own head. And David sent and communed with Abigail to take her to
At Basilio Sintabo, Dan Pulpak sa'yo from Gil Dexter. Salamat po, Dexter.
David sent us unto thee to take thee to him.
Pasukli lang, sir.
And bowed
Thank you,
herself
Busing. Thank you for joining, Busing.
Let thine handmaid be a servant to wash the feet of the servants of my Lord.
Thank you po, sir, at Basilio from RGD Vlog.
With 5 damsels of hers that went after her. And she went after the messengers of David, and became his wife. David also took Ahinoam of Jezreel, and they were also both of them his wives. But Saul had given Michal his daughter, David's wife, to Phalti the son of Laish, which was of Gallim. Chapter 26. And the Ziphites came unto Saul to Gibeah, saying, Doth not David hide himself in the hill of Hachilah, which is before Jeshimon? Then Saul arose, and went down to the wilderness of Ziph, having 3
Welcome, guys. Mega love shout out po sa lahat. Mega love shout out, 7 million people in the house.
But David abode in the wilderness, and he saw that Saul came after him into the wilderness. David therefore sent out spies, and understood that Saul was come in very deed. And David arose, and came to the place where Saul had pitched. And David beheld the place where Saul lay, son of Ner, the captain of his host. And Saul lay in the trench, and the people pitched round about him. Then answered David, and said to Ahimelech the Hittite, and to Abishai the son of Zeruiah, brother to Joab, saying, Who will go down with me to Saul to the camp? And
Thank you, guys. Once again, guys, thank you for joining. And especially, thank you for those who are member in my channel. Thank you for Tatay Panday. He's our member also, new member. And thank you for RGD Vlog. She is our also member. And today, she is our super chatter.
even to the earth at once, and I will not smite him the second time.
And also for Leslie Duran, thank you po. Thank you, ma'am. She is also our member.
David said, Furthermore,
Absent na ngayon, wala
as the
dito.
Lord liveth, the Lord shall smite him.
Sorry ha, mahina pa ako sa bisita sa house ngayon. Lang uli ako nakailis. Okay lang sir, okay lang sir. From Basilio Sintabo.
Take thou now the spear
Okay lang yan sir, walang problema yan sir.
and the cruse of water, and let us go. So David took the spear and the cruse of water from Saul's bolster, And they gat them away, and no man saw it, nor knew it, neither awaked, for they were all asleep, because a deep sleep from the Lord was fallen upon them. Then David went over to the other side, and stood on the top of an hill afar off, a great space being between them.
Sa lahat po na member, salamat po sa lahat. At yung gustong magpa-member, walang problema. Open po yan. Ipindot na yung join option, walang problema yan. Thank you po sa lahat sa support.
Art not thou a valiant man? And who is like to thee in Israel?
Guys, thanks guys. Salamat po sa lahat.
For there came one of the people in to destroy.
So nakapin po tayo guys.
This thing is not good that thou hast done. As the Lord liveth, ye are worthy to die, because ye have not kept your master, the Lord's anointed. And now see where the king's spear is, and the
Welcome sa lahat po. Welcome sa lahat. Sa lahat na nanonood po, sa nakinig. Thank you po sa lahat. Yung mga members ko yan, salamat po sa lahat. Ibang members ko, wala pa dito. O sige lang.
Wherefore doth my Lord thus pursue after his servant?
Walang anuman idol from the Haro 40. Yun pala yung mga bagong join po. Walang problema. Magpa-member po kayo dyan. Araw-araw po, i-announce yung pangalan nyo sa kayong mga link nyo. Araw-araw po ako simula ngayon, araw-araw na po ako mag-ilist. Lahat po ng member ko, i-announce ko yung mga link nila sa kayong pangalan. Welcome po sa lahat.
For the king of Israel is come out to seek a flea, as when one doth hunt a partridge in the mountains.
Iharo 40, di ko makita bahay mo from Basilio Sitabo. Bro, pakilapag po yung bahay mo ngayon dito. At RGD Vlog, dan pulpak po sa salamat from Dixer. Thank you Bossing, thank you for supporting. Welcome kayo dito lahat. Welcome kayo Bossing. At Dixter, thank you sir from RGD Vlog.
For the Lord delivered thee into my hand today, but I would not stretch forth mine hand against the Lord's anointed.
Welcome po sa lahat, welcome po sa lahat.
Thy life was much set by this day in mine eyes, so let my life be much set by in the eyes of the Lord, and let him deliver me out of all tribulation. Then Saul said to David, Blessed be thou, my son David. Thou shalt both do great things, and also shalt still prevail. So David went on his way, and Saul returned to his place. Chapter 27. And David said in his heart,
Welcome guys, thank you for joining guys. Welcome po sa lahat. Salamat pag-join ngayon. Pasensya na pala yung background pala music. Ano yun? Bible audio yun. Welcome po sa lahat.
Make more time.
And David said unto Achish, If I have now found
Welcome po. Thank you po sir. Basilio Sintabo, thank you po sa pag-member po. Guys, welcome sa ating new member ngayon ha. Si Sir Basilio Sintabo. He is our new member. So, araw-araw po, ay announce nito yung pangalan niya, saka yung link niya, kailangan supportaan na si new member po. Welcome po guys.
For those nations were of old the inhabitants of the land, as thou goest to Shur, even unto the land of Egypt. And David smote the land, and left neither man nor woman alive, and took away the sheep.
Salamat po sir.
And the asses, and the
Thumbs up po from Donate channel.
And Achish said, Whither have ye made a road today?
Wow, from RGD Vlog.
Against the south of Judah, and against the south of the Jerahmeelites, and against the south of the Kenites. And David saved
Mega love shoutout po sa lahat. Nandito from channel.
So did David, and so will be his manner all the while he dwelleth in the country of the Philistines.
Welcome sir at Basilio Sintabo from RGD Vlog. Thank you din sir DR. Welcome po sir. Salamat po sir. Salamat sa pag-member po.
Chapter 28. And it came to
Dan Polpak po at Basilio Sintabo from Dixter. Pasuklit na lang po. Loads, okay.
Know thou assuredly that thou shalt go out with me to battle.
Lahat po, may jacket na yan. May naka-jacket na po.
Said to Achish, surely thou shalt know what thy servant can do. And Achish said to David,
Okay.
therefore will I make thee keeper of mine head forever.
Sa nakapin po, guys. Supportahan natin, guys, yung new member ko po, si Sir Basilio Sintabo. Pasuyaan lang, guys, yung bigyan ng tamsak, bakas.
And the Philistines gathered themselves together and came and pitched in Shunem. And Saul gathered all Israel together, and they
Tamsak boss from Kabro.
Saul saw the host of the Philistines. He was
Okay, may jacket ka na. Binigyan kita ng jacket yan.
And when Saul inquired of the Lord answered him not, neither by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by prophets. Then said Saul unto his servants, seek me.
Road to 1K po, patikit. Please guys, tikitan po natin si Kuan, si channel, Unix channel po. Tulungan natin siya makaabot ng 1K. So, malapit na. Malapit na ma-achieve yung kriteria ng Kuan. EYT, Lolo.
And they came to the woman by night, and he said, I pray thee, divine unto me by the familiar spirit, and bring me him up, whom I shall name unto thee. And the woman said unto him, behold, thou knowest what Saul hath done, how he hath cut off those that have familiar spirits, and the wizards out of the land.
They are of 40 yung bahay niyo po, from Basilio Tabo.
Saul sware to her by the Lord, saying, as the Lord liveth, there shall no
At
punishment.
Unix channel, on the way sa bahay niyo, from RGD Vlog.
Whom shall I bring up?
Salamat RG po. Thank you sa support from Unix channel. Welcome po sa lahat. Alam po sa ating mga member diyan. Si Tatay Panday, yung member natin. Saka ito, new member po, si Sir Basilio Sintabo. Thank you po, sir. Thank you so much for today. Salamat po sa lahat sa member dyan. Saka sa sure po, araw-araw yan. Yung link mo, bibigyan na ng mga bananas yan. Aming bahay yan. Salamat RG po.
And he stooped with his face to the ground. and bowed himself. And Samuel said to Saul, why hast
Hi host, nagkaig jacket. Okay, bigyan ng jacket yan.
I am sore distressed? For the
Tatang Poke, welcome po. Welcome sa live series po. Welcome po.
answers me no more.
Welcome guys. Big love shout out. 10 million people in the house. As of now, 10 person fan na good time. Thank you po sa lahat. Thank you for joining.
Wherefore then dost thou ask
Sa naka-pin po tayo guys. Supportan po natin. New member ko po. Si Basilio Sintabo.
For the Lord hath rent the kingdom out of thine hand, and given it to thy neighbor, even to David. Because
Big love shout out. Posing. Welcome sa'yo. Welcome Posing.
moreover,
We life. Big love shout out. Welcome Posing.
the Philistines. And tomorrow
Salamat, Tatang Poke.
the Lord also shall deliver the host of Israel into the hand
Pasok host. Bigyan yan. Dami yan. Suklihan yan. Sigurado yan.
all along on the earth, and was sore afraid because of the words of Samuel. And there was no strength in him, for he had eaten no bread all the day, nor all the night. And the woman came
Sige, tikitan ko muna member mo. Salamat boss. Salamat Posing. We life. Thank you. Thank you so much.
hath obeyed thy voice, and I have put my life in my hand, and have hearkened unto thy words which thou spakest unto me. Now therefore I pray thee, thou also unto the voice of thine
Guys, patuyo guys yung member ko ha. Bagong member ko. Si Basilio Sintabo. Suportahan po natin guys.
refused and said, I will not eat. But his servants, together with the woman, compelled him, and he hearkened unto their voice. So he arose from the earth and sat upon the bed.
Tikitan yan. Sigurado.
And the woman had a fat calf in the house, and she hasted and killed it, and took flour and kneaded it, and did bake unleavened bread thereof. And she brought it before Saul and before his servants, and they did eat. Then they rose up and went away that night. Chapter 29. Now the Philistines gathered together all their armies to Aphek, and the Israelites pitched by a fountain which is in Jezreel. And the lords of the Philistines passed on by hundreds and by thousands. But David and his men passed on in the rearward with
Welcome guys. Welcome guys. Thank you for joining guys.
What do these Hebrews here? And Achish said unto the princes of the Philistines, Is not this David, the servant of Saul, the
At RGD 139 sa'yo gan sukli. Thank you from channel.
I have found no fault in him since he fell unto
Okay.
me unto this day.
At Unique Channel, done sa'yo. Watching 2 minutes sa video. Yun po.
And the princes
From
of the
RGD
Philistines said unto him,
Vlog.
Make this fellow
Dan at Basilio Tabo from Will Life. Thank you, Bossing.
and let him not go down with us to battle, lest in the battle he be an adversary to us. For
Welcome, guys. Hi, my old friends from
should it not be with the heads of these men? Is not
Channel
this
Vlog.
thing
Welcome, welcome po. Welcome. Thank you at Unix.
saying Saul slew his thousands,
Welcome, RG. Anytime po, Will Life.
then Achish
Good morning from Indian. Oh, Indian. Welcome po. Welcome, ma'am. Welcome. God bless always from Will Life.
For I have not found evil in
Extra dan na sa bahay mo. Music intro from Basilio Tabo.
the Lord's favor thee not. Wherefore now return and go in peace. That
On
thou
the way at RG Vlog from Will Life. Welcome, guys. Salamat po sa support.
what have I done? And what hast thou found in thy servant Saul?
Please go watch my new videos from Channel Vlog.
Fight against the enemies of my Lord and King.
Guys, please nakapin po. Pasuyo mo na sa nakapin.
As an angel of God.
Playing at RG Vlog.
The princes of the Philistines have said, He shall not go up with us to the
Please go watch my new videos
rise
from
up early in the morning with thy master's
Channel
servant,
Vlog.
and as soon as ye be up early in the morning, have light.
Italaxmi. Hirap po i-pronounce pangalan mo. Hindi kasi eh.
And the Philistines went up to Jezreel.
Okay. At Kita Laxmi, Channel Vlog, on the way sa'yo from RGD Vlog.
Come to Ziklag on
Dan at RGD Vlog, salamat, God bless from Will Life.
and smitten Ziklag and burned it with fire, and had taken the women captives that were therein. They slew not any, either great
At Basilio Tabo, Dan Pulpak from Cabro.
So David and his men came to the city, and behold, it was burned with fire.
Nakasukli na ako, pwede na ako. Sleep. Wah. Thank you, boss. Thank you, bossing. Thank you, bossing, sa pagtampay. Salamat, bossing. God bless po sa'yo, bossing.
And David's two wives were taken captives, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail.
RG, thank you so much, my friend from Laxmi, Channel Vlog. Surat ikat eh. Hindi.
But David encouraged himself in the Lord his God. And David said to Abiathar,
Mega love shout out host from Duduli. Oh, welcome.
Abiathar brought thither the
Welcome, guys. Welcome sa mga bago. Welcome po sa lahat.
Shall I pursue after this troop? Shall I overtake them? And he answered him, Pursue, for thou shalt surely overtake them, and without fail recover all. So David went, he and the 600 men that were with him, and came to the brook Besor.
Lahat yan, may jacket na po lahat.
But David pursued, he and 400.
Pa-jacket, boss. Uy, Tagalog ka pala. May jacket na.
And they found
Duduli, may jacket na po. Tatang Pogi. Okay, guys, nakapin po tayo, guys, ha. New member ko yan. After, ipin po natin si Tatang Pogi.
And David said unto him,
Salamat sa blue
And whence art thou?
from Duduli.
Unto the young man
Patusok po. Okay, tusukin na yan. Guys, nakapin po tayo, guys. New member ko po.
and upon the
Uy, sa nakapin. Salamat po. From Duduli.
And David said to him, Canst thou bring me this company? And he said, Swear unto me by God,
Unique Channel, galing na ako sa bahay mo from Basilio Tabo.
I will bring thee down to this company.
Thanks up. Thanks up daw.
They were spread abroad all the earth, eating and drinking.
Okay. Welcome sa mga bago Korean movie. Welcome po.
And out of the land of Judah
RG, please drop your link from Channel Vlog.
the next day, and there escaped not a man.
At Cabro, on the way sa'yo from RG Vlog. Please go watch my new videos. Okay. Tingnan po natin yung videos ni Juan, ni Gita Laxmi Channel Vlog.
Neither spoil nor
Palala po from Duduli.
David recovered
Welcome guys. Thank you for joining guys. Please sa nakapin. Support sa nakapin po.
And David came to the 200 men
And yung member po.
who could not follow David, whom they had made also fight at the brook Besor. And they went forth to meet David. And
At Basilio Sintabotan po from Duduli.
he saluted them.
Please sa nakapin guys, bigyan ng kanya na. Ikita ng maayos po. Saka
And said, because they
paglapag,
we will not give them all,
katapos magtikit.
save to every man his wife and his children, that they may lead them away and depart. Then said David, Ye shall not do so, my brethren, with that which the Lord hath given
At ang
us.
pugi, on the way po sa'yo from Duduli. At kabrodan sa'yo, sir, from RGD Vlog.
But as his part is that goeth down to the battle, so shall his part be that tarrieth by the stuff. They shall part alike.
Hello guys, sa nakapin guys, yung member ko po.
Created a statute and an ordinance for Israel unto this day.
After 10 minutes, mag-change ako ng nakapin ha. Please, ngayon guys, sa nakapin po, member ko po yan. Si Sir Basilio Sintabo po.
To them
Bigyan ng mga kanya na, wala na yan.
and to them which were in Japhet, and to them which were in Aroer, and to them
Mega love, shout out po sa lahat.
which were in Eshtamoa,
Welcome po sa lahat guys.
them which
Thank you for joining. Thank you sa mga nag-join ngayon. Especially sa mga members ko, si Tatay Panday, si RGD Vlog, si Basil Sintabo, at saka yung hindi pa nag-online dito, yung mga members ko, tatlo yata. Baka busy sa trabaho. Si Leslie Duran po, baka busy sa trabaho po sila. Pwede sila naka-online ngayon. Mga members po, sa lahat ng members, welcome po sa lahat. At saka thank you po for joining.
fled from before the Philistines, and fell down slain in Mount
At Basilio Sintabo Dan from a Korea movie.
and the Philistines slew Jonathan and Abinadab,
Itatang pugi po.
and the battle
Yung bahay mo po, pababa. Ikaw na next. Tatang pugi. Yung house mo, pakibaba po.
thrust me through therewith
Ikaw na ang next.
uncircumcised common thrust.
Guys, please, stay put lang kayo ha. Kasi nga, yung bahay nyo, ibaba ko yan.
Therefore Saul took
Yung bahay nyo kasi, sorry, yung bahay nyo pala, ipin ko yan. Sorry.
Saul was dead.
Naloko na.
He fell likewise upon his sword and died with him. So Saul
Okay.
died, and his 3
Next.
sons, and his armor bearer, and all his men that same day together. And when the men of Israel that were on the other side of the valley,
Next, guys, please, supportan natin guys. Yung nakapin. Tatang pugi po.
and fled, and the Philistines came and dwelt in them. And it came to pass on the morrow, when the Philistines came to
Welcome guys. Thank you for joining guys.
his 3 sons fallen in Mount Gilboa, and they cut off his head.
At tutuloy tamsak sa upcoming LS News, sir, from RGD Vlog. Will life, galing na ako sa bahay mo. Full pack na. From Basilio Sintabo.
And they fastened his body to the wall of Bethel.
On the way sa nakapin from
And
yung
came to
internet ko.
Jonathan,
Okay.
and they took their bones and buried them under a tree besh.
RGD type po. Babae po ako. Okay. Probably. Tapos tutuloy. Tuloy. Thank you for joining guys. Guys, ang lahat. Sa mga member ko po, welcome po. Salamat sa pag-join. Yung members ko, si Ma'am Leslie Duran, Tatay Panday, at saka si Sagar, si Ma'am RGD, at saka yung iba pa, di nag-online, di ko pa na-check. Lahat ng mga members ko, welcome po. Salamat sa lahat. Sa mga nag-join dito, thank you po. Sa ating super chatter ngayon, si Ma'am RGD Vlog, thank you po, Ma'am. Thank you po sa
And so it was, when he came to David, that he fell to the earth and did obeisance. And David said unto him, From whence comest thou? And he said unto him, Out of
Salamat po Sir Basilio from Junix Channel. Road to 1K po. Patikit please si Junix Channel po.
and many of
Next na ilaipan ko, next na ipin ko si Kwan pala si Junix Channel. Sa nakapin po, si Tatang Pugi. Suportahan po natin. Tatang Pugi, pasukli po from Duduli. Oh, Tatang, pasukli naman Tatang. At Tatang Pugi, Dan, sa'yo, from Korea movie. Korean movie pala, sorry. At Tatang Pugi, Dan, from Argentina. Tang, marami ka ng suklian, Tang. Kabro, galing na ako sa bahay mo. Pulpak na din. Bro. Pasukli na lang kay Sir Basilio Sintabo. Yung member ko yan. Suklian mo maayos yun, ha? RGB vlog, done to you. Done to you pala. Naloko na, from Korea movie. RGB vlog, pang 142 po. From Duduli. Guys, si Korean vlog, so Korean movies, ano po, si Korean movie pala, baba po ng bahay. Supportahan po natin, ha. Full watch ko. Kayo po, Tatang Pogi. Salamat po, Tatang Pogi. Basilio Sintabo, din po ako sa'yo kanina. From Duduli. Please, lapagan po natin, na. Sorry po. Please, ito. Magbakas po tayo sa bahay, ha? Please. Magbakas po ng maayos po. Magdikit ng maayos po. Para sigurado, manood po ng 2 or 3 minutes po. Para sigurado na hindi maglagas. Thank you guys. Salamat po sa lahat. Bigyan ng maraming kiss yan.
Publish it not in the streets of Ascalon, lest the daughters of the Philistines rejoice, lest the daughters of the uncircumcised triumph. Ye mountains of Gilboa, let there be no dew, neither let there be rain upon you, nor fields of offerings. For there the shield of the mighty is vilely cast away, the shield of Saul, as though he had not been anointed.
Next pin si Junic Channel.
From the fat of the mighty, the bow of Jonathan turned not back, and the sword of Saul returned not empty. Saul and Jonathan were
at Korean movie dan sa'yo, idol. From RG Vlog. Welcome guys. Mega love shout out. 10 million people in the house. Thank you for joining guys. Thank you for today. Salamat po sa lahat.
Thou wast slain in thine high places. I am distressed for thee, my brother Jonathan.
Salamat Papin Boss. Welcome. Welcome kapatid. Welcome Pusing. Stay put lang ha. Para matatagan yung pan mo, yung tawag ito. Yung banana mo. Kasi kung kay road to 1 kick, diba? Na-delete.
And it came to pass after this, that David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I go up into any of the cities of Judah? And the Lord said unto him, Go up.
Delete.
And David said, Whither shall I go up? And he said, Unto Hebron. So David went up thither, and his 2 wives also, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail, Nabal's wife, the Carmelite. And his men that were with him did David bring up, every man with his household, and they dwelt in the cities of Hebron. And the men of Judah came, and there they anointed David king over the house of Judah. And they told David, saying, that the men of Jabesh Gilead were they that buried Saul. And David sent messengers unto the men of Jabesh Gilead, and said unto them, Blessed be ye of the Lord, that ye have showed this kindness unto your Lord, even unto Saul, and have buried him. And now the Lord...
Bakit may nagsalita po gospel ba yan? Okay, yung background kasi pa yan eh. Yung music background kasi yung audio yan. Ilang yan. Yan, naka-off na. Paano po yan bro? Yung audio yan, audio. Bible audio po bro. Kasi yung pan ko, yung tawag ito, yung content ng vlog ko po about the Word of God. Kaya yung music ko, about Word of God. Tuduli dance na ako sa iyo. Pulpak na sa bahay mo. From Basilio Sintabo. Tuduli. Niga, masukli ng niga ha. Dana pala. Okay, dana pala. Welcome guys. Salamat po sa lahat. Thank you po sa lahat guys. Sa mga members ko, salamat po sa pag-support. Salamat po sa patambay. Welcome po sa lahat. Welcome guys. Thank you for joining guys. Sa nakapin po, supportahan po natin. Nakapin. Si Jonix Channel. Jonix pala. Jonix. Jonix pala. Jonix. Sira yung paningin ko. Welcome po sa lahat.
And Abner said again to Asahel,
Guys, time out muna. CR muna ako.
Wherefore should I
Balik
smite
maya.
thee to the ground? How then should I hold up my face to Joab thy brother? Howbeit he refused to turn aside. Wherefore Abner with the hinder end of the spear smote him under the fifth rib, that the spear came out behind him. And he fell down there and died in the same place. And it came to pass that as many as came to the place where Asahel fell down and died stood still. Joab also and Abishai pursued after Abner, and the sun went down when they were come to the hill of Ammah, that lieth before Giah by the way of the wilderness of Gibeon. And the children of Benjamin gathered themselves together after Abner, and became one troop, and stood on the top of an hill. Then Abner called to Joab and said, Shall the sword devour forever? Knowest thou not that it will be bitterness in the latter end? How long shall it be then, ere thou bid the people return from following their brethren? And Joab said, As God liveth, unless thou hadst spoken, surely then in the morning the people had gone up every one from following his brother. So Joab blew a trumpet, and all the people stood still, and pursued after Israel no more, neither fought they any more. And Abner and his men walked all that night through the plain, and passed over Jordan, and went through all Bithron, and then came to Mahanaim. And Joab returned from following Abner. And when he had gathered all the people together, there lacked of David's servants 19 men, and Asahel. But the servants of David had smitten of Benjamin and of Abner's men, so that 360 men died. And they took up Asahel, and buried him in the sepulchre of his father, which was in Bethlehem. And Joab and his men went all night, and they came to Hebron at break of day. Chapter 3. Now there was long war between the house of Saul and the house of David. But David waxed stronger and stronger, and the house of Saul waxed weaker and weaker. And unto David were sons born in Hebron. And his firstborn was Amnon, of Ahinoam the Jezreelitess. And his second, Chileab of Abigail, the wife of Nabal the Carmelite. And the third, Absalom, the son of Maacah, the daughter of Talmai, king of Geshur. And the fourth, Adonijah, the son of Haggith. And the fifth, Shephatiah, the son of Abital. And the sixth, Ithream by Eglah, David's wife. These were born to David in Hebron. And it came to pass, while there was war between the house of Saul and the house of David, that Abner made himself strong for the house of Saul. And Saul had a concubine, whose name was Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah. And Ishbosheth said to Abner, Wherefore hast thou gone in unto my father's concubine? Then was Abner very wroth for the words of Ishbosheth, and said, Am I a dog's head, which against Judah do show kindness this day unto the house of Saul thy father, to his brethren, and to his friends, and have not delivered thee into the hand of David, that thou chargest me today with a fault concerning this woman? So do God to Abner, and more also, except as the Lord hath sworn to David, even so I do to him, to translate the kingdom from the house of Saul, and to set up the throne of David over Israel and over Judah, from Dan even to Beersheba. And he could not answer Abner a word again, because he feared him. And Abner sent messengers to David on his behalf, saying, Whose is the land? Saying also, Make thy league with me, and behold, my hand shall be with thee, to bring about all Israel unto thee. And he said, Well, I will make a league with thee. But one thing I require of thee, that is, thou shalt not see my face, except thou first bring Michal, Saul's daughter, when thou comest to see my face. And David sent messengers to Ishbosheth, Saul's son, saying, Deliver me my wife Michal, which I espoused to me, for 100 foreskins of the Philistines. And Ishbosheth sent, and took her from her husband, even from Phaltiel the son of Laish. And her husband went with her along, weeping behind her to Bahurim. Then said Abner unto him, Go, return. And he returned. And Abner had communication with the elders of Israel, saying, Ye sought for David in times past to be king over you. Now then do it, for the Lord hath spoken of David, saying, By the hand of my servant David I will save my people Israel out of the hand of the Philistines, and out of the hand of all their enemies. And Abner also spake in the ears of Benjamin. And Abner went also to speak in the ears of David in Hebron all that seemed good to Israel, and that seemed good to the whole house of Benjamin. So Abner came to David to Hebron, and 20 men with him. And David made Abner and the men that were with him a feast. And Abner said unto David, I will arise and go, and will gather all Israel unto my lord the king, that they may make a league with thee, that thou mayest reign over all that thine heart desireth. And David sent Abner away, and he went in peace. And behold, the servants of David and Joab came from pursuing a troop, and brought in a great spoil with them. But Abner was not with David in Hebron, for he had sent him away, and he was gone in peace. When Joab and all the host that was with him were come, they told Joab, saying, Abner the son of Ner came to the king, and he hath sent him away, and he is gone in peace. Then Joab came to the king and said, What hast thou done? Behold, Abner came unto thee. Why is it that thou hast sent him away, and he is quite gone? Thou knowest Abner the son of Ner, that he came to deceive thee, and to know thy going out and thy coming in, and to know all that thou doest. And when Joab was come out from David, he sent messengers after Abner, which brought him again from the well of Sirah, but David knew it not. And when Abner was returned to Hebron, Joab took him aside in the gate to speak with him quietly, and smote him there under the 5th rib, that he died, for the blood of Asahel his brother. And afterward, when David heard it, he said, I and my kingdom are guiltless before the Lord forever from the blood of Abner the son of Ner. Let it rest on the head of Joab, and on all his father's house. And let there not fail from the house of Joab one that hath an issue, or that is a leper, or that leaneth on a staff, or that falleth on the sword, or that lacketh bread. So Joab and Abishai his brother slew Abner, because he had slain their brother Asahel at Gibeon in the battle. And David said to Joab and to all the people that were with him, Rend your clothes, and gird you with sackcloth, and mourn before Abner. And King David himself followed the bier. And they buried Abner in Hebron. And the king lifted up his voice, and wept at the grave of Abner, and all the people wept. And the king lamented over Abner, and said, Died Abner as a fool dieth? Thy hands were not bound, nor thy feet put into fetters. As a man falleth before wicked men, so fellest thou. And all the people wept again over him. And when all the people came to cause David to eat meat while it was yet day, David sware, saying, So do God to me, and more also, if I taste bread or aught else till the sun be down. And all the people took notice of it, and it pleased them, as whatsoever the king did pleased all the people. For all the people and all Israel understood that day that it was not of the king to slay Abner the son of Ner. And the king said unto his servants, Know ye not that there is a prince and a great man fallen this day? And I am this day weak, though anointed king. These men, the sons of Zeruiah, be too hard for me. The Lord shall reward the doer of evil according to his wickedness. Chapter 4. And when Saul's son heard that Abner was dead in Hebron, his hands were feeble, and all the Israelites were troubled. And Saul's son had 2 men that were captains of bands. The name of the one was Baanah, and the name of the other Rechab, the sons of Rimmon, a Beerothite, of the children of Benjamin. For Beeroth also was reckoned to Benjamin. And the Beerothites fled to Gittaim, and were sojourners there until this day. And Jonathan, Saul's son, had a son that was lame of his feet. He was 5 years old when the tidings came of Saul and Jonathan out of Jezreel, and his nurse took him up and fled. And it came to pass, as she made haste to flee, that he fell and became lame, and his name was Mephibosheth. And the sons of Rimmon the Beerothite, Rechab and Baanah, went, and came about the heat of the day to the house of Ishbosheth, who lay on a bed at noon. And they came thither into the midst of the house, as though they would have fetched wheat. And they smote him under the fifth rib, and Rechab and Baanah his brother escaped. For when they came into the house, he lay on his bed in his bedchamber, and they smote him, and slew him, and beheaded him, and took his head, and gat them away through the plain all night. And they brought the head of Ishbosheth unto David to Hebron, and said to the king, Behold the head of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, thine enemy, which sought thy life. And the Lord hath avenged my lord the king this day of Saul and of his seed. And David answered Rechab and Baanah his brother, the sons of Rimmon the Beerothite, and said unto them, As the Lord liveth, who hath redeemed my soul out of all adversity, when one told me, saying, Behold, Saul is dead, thinking to have brought good tidings, I took hold of him, and slew him in Ziklag, who thought that I would have given him a reward for his tidings. How much more, when wicked men have slain a righteous person in his own house upon his bed? Shall I not therefore now require his blood of your hand, and take you away from the earth? And David commanded his young men, and they slew them, and cut off their hands and their feet, and had them up to the pool in Hebron. But they took the head of Ishbosheth, and buried it in the sepulchre of Abner in Hebron. Chapter 5. Then came all the tribes of Israel to David unto Hebron, and spake, saying, Behold, we are thy bone and thy flesh. Also in time past, when Saul was king over us, thou wast he that leddest out and broughtest in Israel. And the Lord said to thee, Thou shalt feed my people Israel, and thou shalt be a captain over Israel. So all the elders of Israel came to the king to Hebron. And King David made a league with them in Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed David king over Israel. David was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years. In Hebron he reigned over Judah 7 years and 6 months. And in Jerusalem he reigned 33 years over all Israel and Judah. And the king and his men went to Jerusalem unto the Jebusites, the inhabitants of the land, which spake unto David, saying, Except thou take away the blind and the lame, thou shalt not come in hither, thinking David cannot come in hither. Nevertheless, David took the stronghold of Zion. The same is the city of David. And David said on that day, Whosoever getteth up to the gutter, and smiteth the Jebusites, and the lame and the blind, that are hated of David's soul, he shall be chief and captain. Wherefore, they said, The blind and the lame shall not come into the house. So David dwelt in the fort, and called it the city of David. And David built round about from Millo and inward. And David went on, and grew great, and the Lord God of hosts was with him. And Hiram king of Tyre sent messengers to David, and cedar trees,
Hello, welcome back.
and they built David an house. And David perceived that the Lord had established him king over Israel, and that he had exalted his kingdom for his people Israel's sake.
Hello guys, welcome back.
And wives out of Jerusalem.
Congratulations congrats for bro Unix.
And these be the names of those
Unix channel, congrats sa'yo, kapatid. Welcome.
Ibhar also, and Elishua, and Nepheg, and Japhiah, and Elisha.
Congrats guys, congrats.
But when the Philistines heard
At least naka-1K ka na. Congrats sa'yo, kapatid.
And David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I go up to the Philistines? Wilt thou deliver them into mine hand?
Welcome guys, thank you for joining.
For I will doubtless deliver the Philistines into thine hand. And David came to Baal Perazim, and David smote them there, and said, The Lord hath broken forth upon mine enemies before me, as the breach.
Juliet Dan Sukli po, salamat sa support po.
Baal Perazim. And there they left their images, and
Juliet 12 de la Torre.
and spread
Bigyan ng
themselves.
jacket yan. Okay, may jacket na.
Inquired of the Lord, he said, Thou shalt not go up, but fetch a compass behind
On the way, RGL from Juliet de la Torre. Thank you from Unix.
that then thou shalt
Okay. Pasensya na guys, nagkalan ako eh. Kumain pa, nagutom si host. Welcome guys, welcome sa lahat.
Chapter 6.
Welcome sa lahat guys.
Again, David gathered
Sa lahat ng mga members ko, si Mama RGD Vlog,
and David arose and went with all the people that were with him
si Sir Basilio,
to bring up from thence the ark of God, whose name is called by the name of the Lord of hosts that dwelleth between the cherubims. And they set the ark of God upon a new cart, and brought it out of the house of Abinadab that was in Gibeah. And Uzzah and Ahio, the sons of Abinadab, drave the new cart. And they brought it out of the house of Abinadab, which was at Gibeah, accompanying the ark of God. And Ahio went before the ark. And David and all the house of Israel played.
Hello Sir Basilio, nandiyan ka pa? Baba mo yung kan mo sir, yung bahay mo. Para maipin kita ulit.
And when they came to Nachon's threshing floor, Uzzah put forth his hand to the ark of God, and took hold of it, for the oxen shook it. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Uzzah, and God smote him there for his error. And there he died by the ark of God. And David was displeased, because the Lord had made a breach upon Uzzah. And he called the name of the place Perez Uzzah to this day. And David was afraid of the Lord that day, and said, How shall the ark of the Lord come to me? So David would not remove the ark of the Lord unto him into the city of David. But David carried it aside into the house of Obed-Edom.
Hello guys.
And the ark of the Lord continued in the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite 3 months. And the Lord blessed Obed-Edom and all his household.
Welcome back. Welcome back guys, welcome.
The Lord hath blessed
Mega love shout out 12 million people in the house. Welcome back.
So David
Sir Basilio, nandiyan ka pa? Sintabo? Okay, so yung bahay mo saan na yun?
And it was so.
Hindi ko makuha.
When they that bare the
Hanapin
ark
ko
of
ulit.
the Lord had gone 6 paces, he sacrificed oxen and fatlings.
Saan na ba yun?
David danced before the Lord with all his might, and David was girded with a linen ephod. So David and all the
Okay, so yung sir, baba yung house mo, bahay mo pala.
and with the sound of the trumpet. And as the ark of the Lord came into the city of David, Michal, Saul's daughter, looked through a window and saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, and she despised him in her heart. And they brought in the ark
Mega love shout out host from
in
RGD.
the midst of the tabernacle that David had pitched for it. And David offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord. And as soon as David had made an end of offering burnt offerings and peace offerings, he blessed the people in the name of the Lord of hosts. And he dealt among all the people, even among the whole multitude of Israel, as well to the women as men, to every one a cake of bread, and a good piece of flesh, and a flagon of wine. So all the people departed every one to his house. Then David turned to bless his household. And Michal
Paso yung sir, yung bahay mo sir, yung house mo para mapin.
how glorious
Bababa lang po.
is Israel today, who uncovered himself
Welcome guys.
the handmaids of his servants, as one of the vain fellows shamelessly uncovereth himself. And David said unto Michal, It was before the Lord, which chose me before thy father, and before all his house, to appoint me ruler over the people of the Lord, over Israel. Therefore will I play before the Lord. And I will yet be more vile than thus, and will be base in mine own sight. And of the maidservants which thou hast spoken of them shall I be had in honor. Therefore Michal, the daughter of Saul, had no child.
Hello guys, please support my new member, Basilio Sintabo.
Chapter 7. And it came to pass, when the king sat in his house, and the Lord had given him rest round about from all his enemies, that the king said unto Nathan the prophet, See now, I dwell in an house of cedar, but the ark of God dwelleth within curtains. And Nathan said to the king, Go, do all that is in thine heart, for the Lord is with thee. And it came to pass that night, that the word of the Lord came unto Nathan, saying, Go and tell my servant David, Thus saith the Lord, Shalt thou build me an house for me to dwell in? Whereas I have not dwelt in any house since the time that I brought up the children of Israel out of Egypt, even to this day, but have walked in a tent and in a tabernacle.
Hello guys, welcome guys.
With all the children of Israel, spake I a word with any of the tribes of Israel, whom I commanded to feed my people Israel, saying,
Please support my new member guys. Basilio Centavo.
So shalt thou say unto my servant David, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I took thee from the sheepcote, from following the sheep,
Welcome guys. Thank you for joining guys.
over Israel. And I was with thee whithersoever thou wentest, and have cut off all thine enemies out of thy sight, and have made thee a great name, like unto the name of the great men that are in the earth. Moreover, I will appoint a place for my people Israel, and will plant them, that they may dwell in a place of their own, and move no more. Neither shall the children of wickedness afflict them any more, as before time, and as since the time that I commanded judges to be over my people Israel, and have caused thee to rest from all thine enemies. Also the Lord telleth thee that he will make thee an house. And when thy days be fulfilled, and thou shalt sleep with thy fathers, I will set up thy seed after thee, which shall proceed out of thy bowels, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build an house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I will be his father, and he shall be my son. If he commit iniquity, I will chasten him with the rod of men, and with the stripes of the children of men. But my mercy shall not depart away from him, as I took it from Saul, whom I put away before thee. And thine house and thy kingdom shall be established forever before thee. Thy throne shall be established forever. According to all these words, and according to all this vision, so did Nathan speak unto David. Then went King David in and sat before the Lord, and he said, Who am I, O Lord God, and what is my house?
Hello guys. Please support my new members guys.
And this was yet a small
Sir Basilio.
thou hast
Yung kan mo, yung kan mo pala, yung sub mo, di ko makita. Paki-unhide para makakuha natin.
and what
So, ganito makita natin kung ilang pangkailangan, ilang bananas pang kailangan mo. Pa-unhide lang sir, di ko makita yung sub mo.
hast thou done all these great things to make thy servant know them? Wherefore thou art great, O Lord God, for there is none like thee, neither is there any God beside thee, according to all that we have heard with our ears. And what one nation in the earth is like thy people, even like Israel, whom God went to redeem for a people to himself, and to make him a name, and to do for you great things and terrible, for thy land, before thy people, which thou redeemedst to thee from Egypt, from the nations and their gods. For thou hast confirmed to thyself thy people Israel, to be a people unto thee forever. And
Sir,
thou
nakatago yung ano eh. Nakahide yung sub mo, baka mansion na yung bahay mo.
thou hast spoken concerning
Di
his,
makita.
concerning his house, establish it forever, and do as thou hast said. And let thy name be magnified forever, saying,
Hello guys.
God over Israel. And let the house of thy servant David be established before thee. For thou, O Lord of hosts, God of Israel, hast revealed to thy servant, saying, I will build thee an house. Therefore hath thy servant found in his heart to pray this prayer unto thee. And now, O Lord God, thou
Thank you for joining guys. Welcome sa lahat po. Welcome po sa lahat.
and thou hast promised this goodness unto thy servant. Therefore now let it please thee to bless the house of thy servant, that it may continue forever before thee. For thou, O Lord God, hast spoken it.
At Basilio Suntabotan sa iyo, sir. From RGB.
Chapter 8. And after this it came to pass that David smote the Philistines and subdued them. And David took Metheg-Ammah out of the hand of the Philistines. And he smote Moab, and measured them with a line, casting them down to the ground,
Welcome guys. Thank you for joining guys.
and with one full line to keep alive. And so the Moabites became David's servants, and brought gifts. David smote also Hadadezer, the son of Rehob, king of Zobah, as he went to recover his border at the river Euphrates. And David took from him 1,000 chariots, and 700 horsemen, and
Hi
20
host. Welcome.
And David
Roseanne.
promised chariot horses, but
Si Roseanne, welcome po ma'am.
chariots.
May jacket ka na ma'am. Binigyan na kita ng jacket ma'am. Jacket please. Yan na po. Dana po sa'yo. May jacket na po. Welcome po sa'yo. Welcome po. Ma'am, pasuyo na lang yung nakapin po. Sa nakapin po guys, please supportahan po natin guys. Si Basilio Sintabo is my member, my new member po.
David took the shields of gold that were on the servants of Hadadezer, and brought them to Jerusalem.
Thank you, host.
And from Berothah,
Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining.
When Toi, king of Hamath, heard that David had smitten all the host of Hadadezer,
Guys, please, si Rostan pala,
to salute him.
bumaba siya ng bahay. Bigyan ng kanyan.
Hadadezer and smitten
Bigyan ng tikit,
Hadadezer
tikit
had
kalimbang yan.
and
Boss, paayuda, please. Sure.
pieces of brass, which also King David did dedicate unto the Lord, with the silver and gold
Sa nakapin po, guys, please, new member ko, si Basilio Sintabo. Sige, 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 Rosan. Ikitan ko yung bahay mo ngayon, ah.
and of the spoil of Hadad son of Rehob, king of Zobah. And David
What?
gave him
Teka na
reward
pala.
when he returned from smiting of the Syrians in the valley of Salt,
Ito man
being
to.
18,000 men. And he put garrisons in Edom. Throughout all Edom put he garrisons, and all they of Edom David's servants. And the Lord preserved David whithersoever he went.
Okay.
And David reigned over all Israel. David executed judgment and justice unto all his people. And Joab the son of Zeruiah was over the host. And Jehoshaphat the son of Ahilud was recorder. And Zadok the son of Ahitub, and Ahimelech the son of Abiathar were the
Welcome, guys. Thank you for joining, guys. Please, sa nakapin po, new member ko, si Basilio Sintabo.
Cherethites and the Pelethites. And David's sons were
Dikit po na maayos, saka bigyan ng bakas para sigurado din maglagas.
And David said, Is there yet any that is left of the house of Saul, that I may show him kindness for Jonathan's sake? And there was of the house of Saul a servant whose name was Ziba. And when they had called him unto David, the king said unto him, Art thou Ziba? And he said, Thy servant is he. And the king said, Is there not
Hello,
yet
guys. Thank you for joining, guys.
that I may show the kindness of God unto him? And Ziba said unto the king, Jonathan hath yet a son, which
Mega love shoutout po sa lahat. Sa mga newcomers.
And Ziba said unto
Mega love shoutout 12 million people in the house.
son of Amiel in Lo-debar,
12 pa lang yung online ngayon. Okay lang.
and fetched him out of the house of Maker, the son of Amiel, from Lo-debar.
Julie 12, Dilatore dan na po ako sa bahay mo. Complete package na po. O, pakidikits na lang po.
He answered, Behold thy servant. And David said unto him,
Julie 12, saan ka na? Pabakas na lang, pasukli na lang po. Sa new member ko, si Basilio Sintabo po.
All the land of Saul thy father.
Hello guys, welcome guys. Thank you for joining.
And he bowed himself and said, What is thy servant, that thou shouldest look upon such a dead dog as I am? Then the king called to Ziba, Saul's servant, and said unto him, I have given unto thy master's son all that pertained to Saul and to all his house. Thou therefore, and thy sons, and thy servants, shall till the land for him.
Welcome guys. Thank you for joining guys. Welcome po sa lahat guys. Mega love shoutout sa lahat. Salamat po sa lahat ng members ko. Thank you so much sa Mr. Basilio Sintabo. Thank you sir. RGD Vlog, thank you sa support. Member ko yan, si Sagar. Thank you sir. Si Ma'am Leslie. Saka marami pang iba, nakalimutan ko sa pangalan. Basta lahat ng members ko, salamat po sa lahat. Huwag kayo mag-alala kasi yung mga bahay nyo, mamaya ikuha ko yan. Bisitahin ko yan lahat.
Chapter 10. And it came to pass after this, that the king of the children of Ammon died, and Hanun his son reigned in his stead. Then said David, I will show kindness unto Hanun the son of Nahash.
Welcome guys.
And David sent to comfort him by the hand of his servants for his father. And David's servants came into the land of the children of Ammon. And the princes of the children of Ammon said unto Hanun their lord,
Thank you for joining guys. Welcome po sa lahat yung bagong dating. Welcome po sa lahat.
To search the city and to spy it out and to overthrow it. Wherefore Hanun took David's servants and shaved off the one half of their beards and cut off their garments in the middle, even to their buttocks, and sent them away. When they told it unto David, he sent to meet them, because the men were greatly ashamed. And the king said, Tarry at Jericho until your beards be grown, and then return. And when the children of Ammon saw that they stank before David, the children of Ammon sent and hired the Syrians of Beth-rehob, and the Syrians of Zobah 20,000 footmen, and of King Maacah 1,000 men, and of Ishtob 12,000 men. And when David heard of it, he sent Joab and all the host of the mighty men.
Malobat
And
na
the
siya.
children of Ammon came out and put the battle in array at the entering in of the gate. And the Syrians of Zobah and of Rehob.
Salamat po sa lahat. Thank you so much for all my members and
When
support.
Joab saw that the front of the battle was against him before and behind, he chose of all the choice men of Israel and put them in array against the Syrians.
Dan ako sa nakapinhos from Rosan.
That he might put them in array against the children of Ammon.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you
If
po
the
support.
Syrians be too strong for me, then thou
Padikit
shalt
lang
help
po
me.
ng maayos.
If the children of Ammon be too
Nakapana.
strong for thee,
Lahat
then
sa
I
mga
will
support
send
sa yung
thee.
what.
Be of good
Ito.
courage, and let
Bakas.
us slay the men for our people and for the cities of our God.
Basilyo nakapin. Sukli po. Masukli na lang po, sir, kay Rosan.
The people that were with him unto the battle against the Syrians, and they fled before him. And when the children of Ammon saw that the Syrians were fled,
Dan po sa nakapin. Boss Juliet Mukbang.
returned from the children of Ammon and came to
Thank you, Juliet.
when the Syrians
At Rosan, Nikdaw, on the way sa'yo from RGD Vlog.
brought out the Syrians that were beyond the river, and they came to Helam.
Thank you guys. Thank you for joining guys. Welcome.
And when it was told David,
Welcome po kayo lahat sa LS ko.
he passed over Jordan and came to Helam.
Guys, nakapit po guys. New member ko po yan. Deserve Basilio Centavo po.
And the Syrians fled before Israel. And David slew the men of 700 chariots of the Syrians, and 40,000 horsemen, and smote Shobach, the captain of their host, who died there.
Welcome po sa lahat guys.
The servants to Hadarezer saw that they were smitten before Israel. They made peace with Israel and served them. So the Syrians feared to help the children of Ammon any more. Chapter 11. And it came to pass, after the year was expired, at the time when kings go forth to battle, that David sent Joab and his servants with him and all Israel, and they destroyed the children of Ammon and besieged Rabbah. But David tarried still at Jerusalem. And it came to pass in an evening tide that David arose
Welcome po sa lahat. Welcome po sa lahat. Salamat po sa support.
and from the roof he saw a woman washing herself, and the woman was very beautiful to look upon. And David sent and inquired after the woman, and one said, Is not this Bathsheba?
At Rosan, Dan sa'yo from RGD Vlog.
David sent messengers and took her, and she came in unto him, and he lay with her.
Thank you so much, Sky, for the support.
And she returned unto her house. And the woman conceived, and sent and told David, and said, I am with child. And David sent to Joab, saying, Send me Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sent Uriah to David. And when Uriah was come unto him, David demanded of him how Joab did, and how the people did, and how the war prospered. And David said to Uriah, Go down to thy house, and wash thy feet. And Uriah departed out of the king's house, and there followed him a mess of meat from the king. But Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his lord. And when
Welcome guys. Mega love shout out po sa lahat.
Uriah went not down unto his house, David said unto Uriah, Camest thou not from thy journey? Why then didst thou not go down unto thine house? And Uriah said unto David, The ark and Israel and Judah abide in tents, and my lord Joab and the
Guys, please sa nakapin po.
fields. Shall I
Salamat po sa pag-support.
to eat and to drink and to lie with my wife? As thou livest, and as thy soul liveth, I will not do this thing. And David said to Uriah, Tarry here today also, and tomorrow I will let thee depart. So Uriah abode in Jerusalem that day and the morrow. And when David had called him, he did eat and drink before him, and he made him drunk. And at even he went out to lie on his bed with the servants of his lord, but went not down to his house. And it came to pass in the morning that David wrote to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah. And he wrote in the
Welcome po guys. Thank you for joining guys.
forefront of the hottest battle.
Mega love shout out. 14 people in the 40 million people in the house. 40 million na pala. Dami na. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for joining.
And the men of the city went out and fought with Joab. And there fell some of the people of the servants of David. And Uriah the Hittite died also. Then Joab sent and told David all the things concerning the war, and charged the messenger, saying, When thou hast made an end of telling the matters of the war unto the king, And if so be that the king's wrath arise, and he say unto thee, Wherefore approached ye so nigh unto the city when ye did fight? Knew ye not that they would shoot from the wall? Who smote Abimelech the son of Jerubbesheth? Did not a woman cast a piece of
Welcome
bread
guys. Thank you for joining guys.
died in Thebez? Why went ye nigh the wall? Then say thou, Thy servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also. So the messenger went, and came and showed David all that Joab had sent him for. And the messenger said unto David, Surely the men prevailed against us, and came out unto us into the field, and we were upon them even unto the entering of the gate. And the shooters shot from off the wall upon thy servants, and some of the king's servants be dead, and thy servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also. Then David said unto the messenger, Thus shalt thou say unto Joab, Let not this thing displease thee, for the sword devoureth one as well as another. Make thy battle more strong against the city, and overthrow it, and encourage thou him. And when the wife of Uriah heard that Uriah her husband was dead, she mourned for her husband. And when the mourning was past, David sent and fetched her to his house, and she became his wife, and bare him a son. But the thing that David
Thank you
had
for
done,
joining guys. Welcome to lahat po.
chapter 12. And the Lord sent Nathan unto David, and he came unto him, and said unto him, There were two men in one city, the one rich, and the other poor. The rich man had exceeding many flocks and herds, but the poor man had nothing, save one little ewe lamb, which he had bought and nourished up. And it grew up together with him and with his children. It did eat of his own meat, and drank of his own cup, and lay in his bosom.
Arjidan TV, babahay po.
And there came a traveler unto the
Babahay mo pa. Babahay mo. Babahay mo.
that was come unto him, the poor man's lamb, and dressed it for the man that was come to him. And David's anger was greatly kindled against the man. And he said to Nathan, As the Lord liveth, the man that hath done this thing shall surely die, and he shall restore the lamb fourfold.
Thank you, Atros Ann from Arjun Vlog.
Nathan said to David, Thou art the man. Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I anointed thee king over Israel, and I delivered thee out of the hand of Saul. And I gave thee thy master's house, and thy master's wives into thy bosom, and gave thee the house of Israel and of Judah. And if that had been too little, I would moreover have given unto thee such and such things. Wherefore hast thou despised the commandment of the Lord, to do evil in his sight? Thou hast killed Uriah the Hittite with the sword, and hast taken his wife to be thy wife, and hast slain him with the sword of the children of Ammon. Now therefore the sword shall never depart from thine house, because thou hast despised me, and hast taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be thy wife. Thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will raise up evil against thee out of thine own house, and I will take thy wives before thine eyes, and give them unto thy neighbor, and he shall lie with thy wives in the sight of this sun. For thou didst it secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel and before the sun. And David said unto Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. And Nathan said unto David,
Hello guys, please nakapin po.
Put away thy sin, thou shalt not die. Howbeit, because by this deed thou hast given great occasion to the enemies of the Lord to blaspheme, the child also that is born unto thee shall surely die. And Nathan departed unto his house. And the Lord struck the child that Uriah's wife bare unto David, and it was very sick. David therefore besought God for the child.
Welcome guys.
And David fasted and
Welcome
wept.
guys. Thank you for joining.
And the elders of his house arose and went to him to raise him up. But he would not, neither did he eat bread with them. And it came to pass on the 7th day that the child died. And the servants of David feared to tell him that the child was dead. For they said, Behold, while the child was yet alive, we spake unto him, and he would not hearken unto our voice. How will he then vex himself if we tell him that the child is dead? But when David saw that his servants whispered, David perceived that the child was dead. Therefore David said unto his servants, Is the child dead? And they said, He is dead. Then David arose from the earth, and washed, and anointed himself, and changed his apparel, and came into the house of the Lord, and worshipped. Then he came to his own house, and when he required, they set bread before him, and he did eat. Then said his servants unto him, What thing is this that thou hast done? Thou didst fast and weep for the child while it was alive. But when the child was dead, thou didst rise and eat bread. And he said, While the child was yet alive, I fasted and wept. For I said, Who can tell whether God will be gracious to me, that the child may live? But now he is dead. Wherefore should I fast? Can I bring him back again? I shall go to him, but he shall not return to me. And David comforted Bathsheba his wife, and went in unto her, and lay with her. And she bare a son, and he called his name Solomon, and the Lord loved him. And he sent by the hand of Nathan the prophet, and he called his name Jedediah, because of the Lord. And Joab fought against Rabbah of the children of Ammon, and took. Joab sent messengers to David, and said, I have fought against Rabbah, and have taken the city of waters. Now therefore gather the rest of the people together, and encamp against the city, and take.
Welcome guys. Thank you for joining guys. Sa lahat po na nag-support sa LS, sa mga members ko. Ngayon, members ko na online, dalawa, tatlo. Si Dar kanina, saka si Ma'am RT, Sir Basilio Santabo. Kaya yung mga members ko na di pa naka-online. Ah, salamat po sa lahat. Sa team Rich Dream, saka team ko po sa Kwan, sa All Team, Car Sky. Salamat po sa Reaching Dream Team. Yung nag-online po, salamat po sa support. Sa mga members ko po sa Team Rich Dream. Salamat po sa lahat. Hanggang bukas ulit. Bukas ulit pag ilis ako ulit. Sa ngayon, pahinga ko na.
Whose name was Jonadab, the son of Shimeah, David's brother. And Jonadab was a very subtle man. And he said unto him, Why art thou, being the king's son, lean from day to day? Wilt thou not tell me? And Amnon said unto him, I love Tamar, my brother Absalom's sister. And Jonadab said unto him,
Thanks po from R3 Vlog. Welcome.
And when thy father cometh to see thee, say unto him, I pray thee, let my sister Tamar come and give me meat.
Salamat po sa lahat.
That I may see it and eat it at her hand. So Amnon lay down and made himself sick.
Salamat po sa lahat na tumikit. Sa mga new members, salamat po sa lahat.
And make me a couple of cakes in my sight, that I may eat.
So, bukas again. Tomorrow again, ha?
David sent home to Tamar.
Inshallah.
Go now to thy brother Amnon's house, and dress him meat. So Tamar went to her brother Amnon's house, and he was laid down. And she took flour, and kneaded it, and made cakes in his sight, and did bake the cakes. And she took a pan, and poured them out before him. But he refused to eat. And Amnon said, Have out all men from.
Once again, thank you so much for our super chatter from R3 Vlog. Our new member, Basilio Sintabo. Salamat po, sir. Sa mga members ko din online, thanks a lot for supporting. Saka yung mga bagong mga kaibigan dito po, thanks po sa lahat. Pagtikit, sa pag-support, sa pag-connect, thanks a lot. Hoping tomorrow we can make online again, KLS. So, okay na. So, next time ulit ha. God bless you guys. Thank you for joining.
Now therefore I pray thee, speak unto the king, for he will not withhold me from thee. Howbeit he would not,
So, bukas ulit, okay?
but being stronger than she, forced her.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for joining.
Amnon hated her exceedingly, so that the hatred wherewith he hated her was.
Bukas again, okay? Tomorrow again, we can make LS. Inshallah.
Amnon said unto her, Arise, be gone. And she said unto him,
Welcome po sa lahat. God bless sa lahat.
This evil in sending me away is greater than the other that thou didst unto me. But he would not hearken unto her.